Alright, welcome to the continuation of my prior video, but technically week 23 minus 2's episode of Founder Log, and this is just going to be me going through this business meeting that I had on Monday with my founding partner, business partner, investment partner, however you want to describe that relationship, and going through obviously kind of what my thoughts are going forward, ramble on like debt as a early level or early stage company, startup, whatever, and kind of seeing where that goes. Obviously, this is going to be a little more ad lib and less structured. So enjoy. So obviously, there's this real weird question of funding, where me and my business partner are fine with funding a company, but obviously it's getting to the point where things may be changing personally with personal finances. When it comes to burn, when it comes to scaling up the business, there are dynamic variables to how things function as a business, as an organization, and naturally as a person, right? Obviously. And you're trying to work around this. Obviously, you can make things work naturally. I think that's something I pride myself on, with the creativity, where I think if there's a will, there's a way, as long as you're following the rules. And with that, obviously, I am intrigued by debt. I won't detail my personal debt. I don't think that's relevant. But when it comes to debt, obviously, I want to scale up the business. And debt looks like something operationally practical. And I say this neutrally as someone that I'm very muted when it comes to debt. I don't feel one way or another. I don't see it as good or bad. It's more a cost of growth or cost of capital thing, where in business school there's something where, what's the cost of debt or whatever, right? And you would view this argument between, bringing in investors, dilution, whatever, versus borrowing money, the cost of capital. But as an operator, as a two-man operation, right, there's two investors. There's two owners. I own half of my company. My business partner owns the other half. And in that case, you've diversified risk. You've offloaded this. Obviously, if you borrow money, you offload this to the business, technically, theoretically, or just work with me here, where this is more a business necessity, depending on, the liquidity of owners and whatever, where this is something of necessity rather than a cost of capital thing. And maybe the argument you could say is, well, if you're going to borrow, why not amortize the whole thing? I, as, the founder, as an owner, as the designated individual to sign off on things, on documents, am required to pay this off within X amount of months. Or it could be an accelerated schedule. Or, there could be a higher rate of interest. I don't understand why the system is the way it is. I just am trying to make my thing work. And with that, obviously, I'm more interested in, I'm fine with paying a premium on debt because I'm kind of fucked, to put it bluntly. There is no other option for debt. So you have to pay a private individual who is willing and has the liquidity, rather than going to a bank, which is very unfortunate, as this is very simple, where it's just cash and something to do with regulation. You have to have a certain monthly recurring revenue, or a certain size, where I come from more of a asset-based financial viewpoint or philosophy. If I have an asset, I can sell it at any fucking point in time. Obviously, it's going to be very aggressive. I can sell it at any point in time and pay off the debt. I'm trying to grow my asset base, my net worth, my company net worth per se, in order to scale up and pay off this debt. Could you work something where you have to have X amount percent of a loan sitting in cash, doing nothing, and force that, liquidity, right? This is permanent liquidity, let's say. I don't think it would be working capital, but it's fixed where you can't touch it as a business. And this makes sense to me. Like, you could completely kill how someone could deploy this capital, but you don't want to loan it because whatever, you're in your infancy, it's so high risk. It's like, just collateralize it or set it up where it's an aggressive loan where we'd actually want to pay the thing off as fast as possible. There's a certain level of, I want to convert debt into equity and growth and scaling, and then obviously you have to pay this back. And like, I was looking at the amortization schedule for like an 8% loan on 50K, and I believe if I'm remembering correctly, it was roughly like $1,333 and 33 cents or something per month for 60 months. Depending on that schedule, I think I was looking at like 51 as well, or like a straight line 8% for a year, and then obviously amortize it across 4 years. All sorts of creative finance stuff. And I don't know, it doesn't make sense why you can't just straight line borrow from a bank. Like, hey, I'll give you a personal guarantee. If the company can't pay this, I'll pay for it personally. Who knows how that works? Maybe I should walk into one of my local banks, see if that works. But I mean, at the end of the day, obviously, what I do is more risky than your traditional business, right? Obviously, the volatility of the book of assets of my company is completely different than, I'm a commerce store buying widgets or whatever, and I need debt so I can pay my employees. Whereas at a current point, right, there's no reason to pay the owners or any individual income as, let's just put it bluntly, the company can't afford that, and the whole thing's supposed to be an asset, accumulation vehicle per se, up to a certain point where obviously it is a substitute for a job, and then that whole self-employment, whatever, in scaling into a corporation and that whole deal where the vision's there. I just gotta be the guy making it happen and growing and scaling and building this thing out. It's an operation. So, that's kind of the viewpoint with debt. Obviously, come next quarter or post-Japan, post-travel, I'm gone. I'm out of here. So you already know that now, 2 weeks later, you know where I'm at, but you don't know where specifics. But to that degree, right? Like I believe I'll get the Pro or Max. I'm leaning towards Pro as operationally speaking, right? You just incurred like $750 of expense, 751 whatever, of expenses, right? This business expensing and business meeting, and obviously tax prep on the corporation's, a company side or partnership side. However, it's 40, 84, 49. I think it was the form. Getting that prepped and whatever, and so something that's like these non-recurring or non-normal, put it, right? Non-standard expenses that are higher cost. So let's say legal fees, right? That's something that's high. You're trying to minimize bleed in order to have sustainable growth, right? You can't burn your whole treasury just like that, because that's fundamentally stupid. And I think parts of that frustration where it's like, why can't I borrow? I know I can borrow. I know I'm a good debtor or creditor, right? Like my credit score is my personal credit score is 776. I don't know what my business partner's credit score is. I don't think it's really relevant comparatively. But it's like I can get a personal loan for the exact amount of capital I want, but then I have to jerry rig a loan from you know, company to, excuse me, loan co, or whoever the originator is, to me, then I lend to my company, and then my company ends up paying me back some type of amortization schedule, and then I have to pay back original credit co. It's just like this mess, and I don't like it, especially if like obviously I'd have to scalp the rate, if I were to do that by like 2%. It doesn't make any sense why I'd borrow personally versus why I want to just borrow privately through a trusted individual, where it just makes more sense to me in order to obviously scale up my business. So they're just things that obviously make sense, but like ramble aside from going back to debt, be subscribing for Claude, getting that, and then looking into insurance and whatnot, where obviously that's going to start having to be a item, especially when I won't be getting any comp for, let's be realistic, maybe another year or two. Other than that, I'm obviously a hyper optimist. I need to build things. It's kind of what led me here. Along with, like, obviously, trying to look for work and whatnot, because naturally, when you get to a point where it's like, okay, starting to burn, personal net worth in order to scale up, wealth accumulation vehicle, passion project thing over here. How do I go about this? Because I don't want to destroy everything here in order to build something here, even though I'm kind of willing to make that trade-off, but I'd be willing to do it like for, some type of swap, let's say, for income. I don't know how else to describe that. So, in that sense, right, like obviously you just want like some general standard comp package or facility, but scaling up is the main hurdle. And I don't know, maybe I'm just growing so slower than I expect, especially as someone who has high personal returns, like historically. And I guess part of what makes it hard to like bite at is that I kind of underperform my personal performance. Of course, we're recovering right now as of May 6th, but I don't know. It's weird. It's weird when you go flat when you're used to some format of hockey stick or like accelerated growth compared to market. So that being said, that's kind of all I have for this ramble. Thanks for listening. Bye.